Hello, Earth Angels, and welcome back to another episode of Alignment Academy. I'm so excited for this episode. I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this conversation with Neal Bakshi. I found him like randomly on social media and been sending my friend Brianna all of his stuff because I'm like, girl, this is so spot on. Like, listen to this energy reading, listen to this, whatever. And to be able to connect with him over the mic, like even before and after the call, we were just jamming on all the things. And I'm like, this is Soul Fam. I love this. I love this guy. He's so dope. And you guys are going to learn so much about how to work with your angels, how to call in your angels. We talk about everything. We talk about shifting identities on the spiritual path. It's just a really, really good conversation. And I've always felt so connected to angels. I think I've told you guys this, but when I was little, when I was like in preschool, I used to always be on the preschool playground, not the field, and always be like, Mom, do you see all these angels? And that was actually my first kind of like spiritual memory. I do remember seeing the angels, and my mom would always be like, No, I don't see them, but I'm sure that they're there or whatever. And she was always very supportive. And it just a full circle moment because I know I've told you guys on the podcast before. Last year, when I really blasted my channel open, it was the angels who came through first. I've never shared in depth about this, but I want to tell you guys, it was so funny when it actually happened after the fact, when I was like, oh my gosh, I was just channeling angels. Like I can hear angels. Like this is so crazy. And they were working with me and in helping me heal because I was in my rock bottom at the time. When I look back, they were sending me signs all along. So just to give you guys a few signs, number one, that playground memory, I was seeing them on the playground since I was little, and I've always felt very connected to angels. The other thing is the sleep shirt I was wearing when it happened, it had a huge angel on it. It like literally it's like a yellow shirt and it has an angel on it. I slept in that shirt like every night for like that entire year last year. And it was just funny because it was just like a little sign from the angels. And then the deck that I used, if you guys have followed me online for a long time, the deck that I've used for probably 5 years now is daily guidance from your angels. And if you guys are watching the video, I'm holding it up right now. It's my favorite oracle deck and I still use it to this day. And it's just so funny that it was angels. And so what I think is beautiful about this spiritual path is sometimes it's hard to put the puzzle pieces together going forward, but you can always put them together on the back end, right? Really excited for you guys to listen to this episode. Also, just a reminder, I still have some spaces available for Cosmic CEO, which is my retreat in Costa Rica in May. If you are a light worker and you're ready to fully step into your light and own your power and just go all in on this path, your mission, your business, and connect with Soul Fam, have so much fun, ready to dance under the stars to chain smokers and take pictures and make fun TikToks. Like we're going to have so much fun. I'm so excited for all the women that are coming and it's just going to be an amazing time. Definitely just DM me Cosmic on Instagram if you're interested and I'll give you the application and call link so that you can hop on a call with me and Bree. But I'm just so excited for this. So without further ado, let's get into it. Neal, thank you for coming on Alignment Academy.
Thank you for having me on. It's a blessing to be here.
I'm so excited to introduce you to my audience and just get into all things angels and everything else our higher selves are stirring up. So, can you just begin by introducing yourself to the audience and sharing what you do in this world currently?
Of course, it would be an honor. So, my name is Neal Bakshi. I grew up in a spiritual family, meditating since I was 5 years old, and I learned ancient and scientific yogic techniques of meditation, and eventually got engrossed in the material world and worked on Wall Street for nearly a decade. And then my mom very suddenly and unexpectedly crossed over. And I went back into meditation to seek peace and solace. And during that time, I began to communicate with what I now know to be angels or your higher self. And very shortly thereafter, I had the ability to communicate with my mom on the other side. So today, that gift has evolved wonderfully, and I call myself an angel medium and a spiritual guide alongside a number of other things.
Wow, that is quite a story. I feel like we probably skipped through so many key details in there. So, we're going to just go back for a hot second. Tell us what it was like growing up in a family where you were meditating since you were five.
Totally. So I treated it as something that I kind of had to do, not like had to do, but I didn't really have an intention behind it. My parents would take me to the meditation chapel just to like learn the basics of meditation, concentration, sitting still, not responding to every restless movement. I wasn't really like into it as a kid, but I learned the basics of it. I learned the techniques of it, how to really concentrate your attention and will as like a laser beam, basically, to single pointedly focus that attention of consciousness. That's like what it was like growing up. I did it every week, but I wasn't really deeply into it. It was really
Mm,
only after my mom passed on that I went into meditation with deep intention to seek peace, because it
mm.
was just so sorrowful. I was like waking up in the middle of the night crying into my pillow, like going for a run and just like crying, just breaking down during it. So I used it as a tool just to like seek peace more than anything. And
Wow.
from there, just a multitude of gifts opened, which is why I think meditation is just the bedrock of any spiritual practice.
I can't agree more. I've recently have a very strict meditation practice where I meditate like an hour and a half to 2 hours a day, which I can't believe I'm saying that out loud because like I used to hear people say that and be like, what the fuck? Like now, to your point, I have found such a hunger to go into that void and become nothing. In the nothing, you're everything. You feel like you have it all. And it's almost like you just crave it in a sense. And none of your problems exist when you're in the void. I think that the problem, at least if I look back at my path, is I never sat with myself long enough to find that peace. It's like it takes a level of like sitting with yourself long enough to feel the wholeness that comes with like being
100%.
nothing.
100%, 100%. And it is often so demotivating, if that's the word, for people who are just starting because they don't necessarily see the results right away.
Yeah.
It's not like you're maybe like a diet or going to the gym where you're going to start to see a result in a month. You might see a result, but you're not going to see like the real deep results for probably a couple months to years. And that's where sort of people fall off. But if you go really deep into it, people are like, oh, meditation's so great, but it really is beyond anything words can even express.
Yeah. And I think that for me, the biggest thing, and I've actually never shared this on the podcast, so it's good, is you have to learn how to almost like tame the animal. So in the beginning, when I sit down, I can tell that my body wants to get up and move. And like, I'm kind of like antsy. I'm like, how long have I been here? Like, I need to itch. I need to whatever. And then the way that I know that I've dropped into nothing is I'm completely disconnected. I'm not thinking about if I'm comfortable. I'm not thinking about my surroundings. I'm not thinking about if I want to eat. It just like becomes this detachment from my body, almost like a hibernation where I can just be in the nothing. So I'm curious, like what kind of meditation do you do? Are you like into silent or is there a certain kind that you love?
Yeah, you're spot on. Like your description of the experience is spot on. So I completely understand that you are deep in it for sure. And for people wondering that are like, well, how do you get past that point of feeling the restlessness in the beginning? Something that's super simple that really helps is taking a double inhalation through your nose and squeezing every muscle super tightly in your body, your face, your feet, everything for like 6 seconds, double exhaling through your mouth,
Ooh,
doing that 3 times. And what that does is that decarbonizes your body. So it basically removes CO2 from your body, which is what the cause of some of that restlessness is. And so
interesting.
coming back to the meditation technique, I learned this through my guru Paramahansa Yogananda. So he's an Indian guru, came to the US
Yeah.
in 1920. I know you know that he Encinitas, California. He has a beautiful meditation garden there.
Yeah.
And so that's this path I was raised on. And he teaches yogic and scientific meditation techniques that basically unite the Western and Eastern worlds, using Mahavatar Babaji as this great avatar who teaches Kriya Yoga, which is a form of
Mm,
pranayama meditation where you use the breath to move the life force up and down the spine such that you can basically move it through the pineal gland
yeah.
to activate these higher states of consciousness.
It's so funny that this is like the world that was colliding. So my audience already knows, I've been very into Joe Dispensa. And I don't know if you've ever looked into his work, but
Yep.
a lot of his advanced meditations, we are sitting there for about 5 to 10 minutes and doing a breath. He calls it like dinging the pineal gland, where we're like literally bringing the cerebral spinal fluid from the bottom of our spine and bringing it up and learning how to like squeeze it and like hit that thing. And I actually hit it for the first time like a couple of weeks ago. Like when you hit it,
Yeah.
and it was the craziest feeling. I almost fell out of my I think I like almost like did kind of fall out of my chair. But it's just insane what you can do when you learn how to like work with your body to access these higher states of consciousness, and you really don't need any plant medicine or anything. Like that stuff helps, but you literally can do it in meditation, which is just crazy.
100%. And so I am very familiar with Dr. Joe. I've read his books. I haven't been to one of his retreats, but I know a bunch of people who have, and I've done a bunch of his meditations. And as I was doing them, I was like, holy shit, this is like basically Kriya Yoga, add in a couple of other steps and things
Yeah.
to do. And you're looking at a very, very similar form to Kriya Yoga. So he's right on with the stuff that he's teaching.
And he, most people don't know this if they haven't like been to his retreat, but this might make you like love him more. Since he was like in his 20s, he's been going to like Vipassanas and just all these like very spiritual. He's just like a very spiritual being, but you don't think that it's been like that long. But since he was very young, he's been going to this stuff, and he shares a lot of stories like at his retreats, like about him going to the Vipassana and hitting his pineal gland and like passing out and having like crazy connections with source, and then everyone being like, did you hear that guy screaming? And so it's kind of funny how all the worlds really do collide, like Eastern, Western, if you find, I don't know, the right information.
Totally. Totally.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's move forward just a little bit. So you worked on Wall Street. Tell us a little bit more about why or how that happened, because it's so different from what you're doing now.
I know it's nuts. So at the age of 12, I actually knew I wanted to be an investment banker. I had a bunch of close family friends who were managing directors at JP Morgan, hedge fund owners, like venture capitalists, and they had the most epic houses and lifestyles. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is what I need to do. I need to make tons of money and work in finance. And so since 12, I wanted to be a banker. I went to NYU, majored in economics and history. And then I landed my dream job on Wall Street at Goldman Sachs as an investment banker. And so I worked in total on Wall Street for 8 years. I made it all the way up to vice president at Goldman. I loved what I did. I was great at what I did. And then my mom passed on, and that really caused me to go within to ask myself the deep questions. Who am I? What am I doing here? What's my purpose here? If I were to die tomorrow, like my mom, out of nowhere, would I be fulfilled with the life I lived? And
Mm.
the answer was no. And so I started to ask myself, like, what do I need to do? Like, show me what I need to do. And in the first 3 months of 2021, every single day for 90 days, I received the same message saying, you need to help people, you need to help people, you need to help people. And I was like, I have no idea what this means. I thought I was supposed to be an investment banker. I thought, like, what do you want me to do? And as that year went on, synchronicity truly just started to amplify like never before. Like I was guided to learn things like life coaching. And I was like, oh, like I started helping people in life coaching. And I was like, wow, people were saying like you changed my life, like if I write a
Mm.
book you're going to be in it. And I was like, oh my god, like I've closed $100 billion of deals for Goldman, and I've never heard someone say that to me in my life, but this feels so filling. And then from there I started to learn energy healing, became a breathwork instructor, plant medicine, ceremony therapy, studied with shamans in the Amazon, like, and I was like, wow, like this is pulling me forward in a way that feels like every step I'm taking, the next door is opening for me without me needing to
Mm.
know where I need to go next. And things just started to unfold. And so, like, it has been a beautiful journey. I'm missing out a big part during that journey, which is the ability to communicate with angels throughout that year and after, which has been a big part of my life now. But it's been just a dance of where do you need me? Like asking spirit, where do you need me to be? And so I just travel the world now and genuinely say I go where spirit calls me to work. And so whether that's medicine ceremonies, whether that's teaching, whether that's hosting retreats, whatever that is, I work with people one on one around the world. So it's like I have surrendered my life into sports, into spirit.
And really, when we learn that act of surrender, it's so hard to surrender. Like, and to the level you're doing it, just kudos, because it's like you don't even know what's next. But I think that that's actually when it gets good. Surrendering to the unknown is better than you could ever imagine it to be. And when you really just like let that unfold and trust, it takes a massive amount of trust. You're like, wow, this is so much better than I could have ever planned if I wrote it down all on paper. And so has that been kind of the experience for you? Like, what's been the craziest thing about this like life of surrender?
I bring it back to the analogy of the caterpillar transforming into a butterfly, because the caterpillar has no idea it's going to transform into a butterfly.
Mhm.
But actually, when it's born, it's born with what's called imaginal cells. It's a real thing. You can look it up, imaginal cells.
Wow.
And they doesn't know that it's going to transform into a butterfly, but when it goes into the cocoon, these cells know it's like basically time to act. Let's go. And they find each other within the body of the caterpillar to help it transform. So it's like its new eyes, its new ears, like its new reproductive organs, and it
Wow.
helps it transform into this butterfly. And I think of it the same way in our life. Like we don't know that we have these imaginal cells within us. I use that as an analogy for humans, but we're born with these sparks of gifts and creativity and
Yeah.
light within us that when we're going through difficult situations end up coming together to help us transform into something even more beautiful than we can hope or imagine.
Mm.
And that's how I look at it. But the most wondrous thing that happens is now I'm just like last year I was in 65 cities, 15 countries, and 5 continents. And so it's like, would I have expected to do that 3 years ago? No, no, not even close. So it's just like, where do you need me to be? I get to go into like the Great Pyramids and host private sound activation, voice activation ceremonies on the full
Wow.
moon, on Archangel's Day for some of my retreats. Like we do private ceremonies in Isis's temple on the Nile for sunrise. I lead
Oh
like
my
meditations at
gosh.
Chichen Itza. Like the kind of stuff that I'm doing now, I'm just like, I'm living a life that is of my dreams, but it's something I could have never even dreamed of.
It's
So
bigger
it's
than you
like
can even imagine.
100%,
Oh my
100%.
gosh. When you were younger, were you like tapped in or did you just like, did it just open?
It's funny you asked this question because I was just talking to my sister about this a couple days ago. I don't think I really was tapped in to the extent that I am now at all.
Mhm.
The closest thing to being tapped in was that I had a really weird obsession with crystals and gemstones, and I just like loved to collect them. And my mom was super supportive. She was like, "Yeah, like let Neil collect his crystals, like whatever." But I think that's just a reminder of like your soul knows something that you don't know as a young kid,
Always.
and it's like, okay, something is pulling you, whether it's collecting random crystals that somehow are going to feed back into your life, whether you know it or not. So it's interesting to see how everything comes full circle.
Do you still like crystals?
I love crystals.
I thought so. Now you're probably like, okay, these are actually really freaking powerful.
Totally, they are. They're sentient and conscious. And I speak to my crystals. I'm like, thank you for being here. Thank you for, yeah.
Let's actually talk about that because I didn't believe that crystals were conscious. Like literally up until a couple of years ago, I had them because I thought spiritual girls had them, but I didn't actually know they were conscious until my channel like blasted open. I was like, oh, these things are real. So can you just speak to the consciousness of crystals and how to use them and how to work with them?
Absolutely. So even if you think about the earth, for example, the earth is far more conscious than we are. If you think
Mhm.
about a couple, a mom and a dad who have a kid, well, that's two conscious beings caring for one child, and maybe they have two or three or whatever, seven. But that's probably like you max out at a certain point of two humans. Well, the earth is providing life for trillions of life forms, literally trillions, plants, animals, humans, providing the sustenance, providing the basically the womb that all of these things live in. And if you even think about what's underneath the earth, well, there's a crystalline grid that is activating every part of the planet, from the ley lines of the planet. And you can basically see different chakra energy centers on the planet itself by denoted by different energetic points on this planet. There's one in California as well, Mount Shasta.
Yeah. Been
And
there.
so basically the crystalline grid below the earth is what helps activate everything on top of the earth. And it connects you to the higher dimensional frequencies. People have actually run experiments where you take your shoes off for your bare feet to walk on the grass, and you can see the frequency of the energy that is coming through the body on an electromagnetic scale actually increases as you measure it. That flows through your body, which is buffered if you walk with shoes because that rubber buffers the connection. But the way you basically work with crystals, or you can work with crystals, manyfold. You can be in energy healing sessions. You can hold on to them. You can hold them to your heart or different parts of your body that might need healing. You can charge them and cleanse them under the energies of the sun and the moon. But, and there's even things like pendulums, for example, which respond to the energy of the human body, which will give you an answer, yes or no, as to if you need to make a decision. So it's a way to also tap into your own intuitive guidance. So there's so many ways to work with crystals, but they're so energetically powerful, and each one coming from a different source mineral has a different energetic quality to it.
And I like just going to a crystal shop and like seeing where my intuition leads me. And then you look up the crystal after, and it's always like exactly what you need. It's just like they're alive and they're conscious and they're talking to you just like you can talk to them. So love it.
Something that's really interesting that I just learned about is that people are now storing data on crystals, quantum crystal computing. And so they actually said that you can basically like write books and store them in a crystal that can be
Yeah.
decoded. And every book in the British Library can be stored in the equivalent of crystals that can fit into a shoebox. So the amount of data that crystals hold is intense. And we're just starting to understand that as quantum computing now starts to really take off.
There's so much I want to say on this. For the OG listeners of the podcast, I had a beautiful man named Aaron Lazar on, and he gave me a reading on the podcast. And he was telling me that I had this past life where I was like storing information in crystals in Lumeria. So it's like a whole full circle moment right now.
Whoa. Wow. That's insane.
And back to the pineal gland too. I don't know how we got on topic of crystals, but we're just going to go with it. Back to the pineal gland, there's literally crystals in your pineal gland. And when we were talking about bringing the cerebral spinal fluid up and kind of like putting pressure on the crystals, there's this thing called like, I think it's like the piezoelectric effect. I don't know, something
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Basically, what's happening is you're bringing the fluid up, which is like compressing the crystals, and the crystals are compressing. If you're watching the video, I'm like putting my hands together. The crystals are compressing, which is actually creating the electromagnetic field around your body. And then as it compresses to the amount where it can't, it has an opposite effect where it comes into your crown chakra. And it's just crazy. I mean, that's the reason that we can have a Wi-Fi signal to the quantum field and to source because of the crystals in our brain.
It's so crazy. And now science is starting to back up what people like sages and
Mm-hmm.
spiritualists have known for millennia, and probably even long before the human existence that has existed. So like think about what Atlantis, Lemuria, all of these things, right?
Yeah.
They operated at a very high level of knowledge that was kind of lost. And now it's starting to come back.
So cool. So let's move to your mother's death, which I'm sorry, by the way. I'm sure she's here and supporting you.
You know,
But it seems like that was like a rock bottom point that led to your greatest, like you really stepping into your mission, definitely like a soul assignment, if you will. And if I look back at my path too, I really want to talk about this because so many people are going to be able to see themselves in us. If I look at my path, it's the biggest rock bottoms that not only opened up my gifts, but really pushed me on the path. So tell us what it was like. You mentioned you couldn't, you were not in control of your emotions. You were having lots of crying and just like a lot of emotional stuff coming up. Can you just share a little bit about what that was like and then what it was like going into the darkness to find your light again?
totally. It's hard to explain, but also not hard to explain because my mom was everything to me. She was like my sister was 5 years older. We were never really that close growing up. My dad didn't live at home Monday through Friday. And my mom was just always sort of the staple in my life. So like she was always there. We were always super close. And she genuinely, looking back in retrospect, loved me more than I loved myself.
Mm.
And when that energy is gone, it was truly rock bottom. Like if you think about a fear scale of 0 to 100, and let's put everything that can possibly happen on that free scale, on that fear scale. So you get hurt, you get into a car crash, your best friend breaks up with their boyfriend, whatever that is, right? This was 100 on my fear scale. This was all the way. And so I was really pushed to my extremes in every way. I had to pick up the pieces for my family. Like no one tells you how to like transfer mortgages and titles and deeds and keep credit card payments running on time and like log on and try to find passwords for everything. Like on
Wow.
top of all of that, like grieving process, like holding it together, like my dad was in complete shock. It feels like a dark nightmare, really. You're just like, what is even happening? Like you're like, am I even going through my life right now? It's almost like a disassociative state because it's
Mhm.
such intense pain, grief, confusion, shock. But you're right. And I think a lot of the listeners who have gone through difficult periods of time in their life, be it breaking up with a long-term partner or moving or losing a job or losing a loved one, these intense experiences, I've been thinking about this a lot, are almost necessary to wake us up from our mundane, I'll call it mundane, but just usual day-to-day life where we go through things and we're grateful, but when things don't get shaken up in a really intense way, it's hard to really feel the need for something to change.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that it's just a complete new timeline that you get to embark on. And it's like an opportunity for you. It's almost like I hate saying this because if I heard myself say this while I was in my rock bottom, I would have like punched myself in the face. But it's like a gift for you to create a new life.
100%. That is the word. It's genuinely the greatest blessing you can ever receive. But in the moment, you're so close to
Can't
your
see
own
it.
situation that you just can't zoom out to allow yourself to even see or feel that, which it's actually completely okay. Like you should allow yourself to
Mhm.
be in the emotions, feel all of it, because if you try to bypass that, it will only come back stronger. But it's true. Like a lot of these things that happen to us, we see the silver lining 5, 10 years down the line. But if we can start to close the gap to seeing the gratitude in the now for all these things as close to the moment as possible, I'm not saying like, oh my God, something horrible happened. Now immediately show a smiling face. But just if we can allow ourselves to move through, feel all of the feelings, go through the process, to know that this is ultimately happening for us, life is happening for us, through us, not to us, it changes our entire perspective from feeling like a victim of this experience to a conscious co-creator of this experience that we may not be aware of why it's fully happening right now, but knowing that there is something that's happening through this, how can we allow ourselves to feel fully what everything needs to be felt as part of the human experience? We're here to experience ultimately, that will then help us get to that next point. And
Yeah.
having people around you that help you hold the faith is probably one of the most understated things ever. So like amazing friends, even coaches, therapists, channelers, whoever, these are people in your life that can help you get through these times in a much more easeful and graceful way.
And I think looking at the higher perspective, like you have to learn, even if it's just by like listening to someone who has a very zoomed out perspective. That was the biggest thing that helped me, like realizing that for my human, it felt like my ego was like, this is all gone wrong. This is not how it's supposed to be. But if you're able to look at the higher self perspective and like even go to the point of being like, oh, on my life overview before I came into this life, I actually probably chose this exact moment. I'm actually right on time. Like this was actually one of the biggest moments of me coming and reincarnating. So the way I look at it, like I'm an Aries sun, so I'm like, okay, it's go time then. If I put this in my path to transmute it, you best bet I'm not going to have to do this again because I'm only going to do this once. And I really did have that perspective while I was going through my rock bottom last year too, of like, I want to go back into the spirit. This is so weird for me to say, but I'm like, I want to go back into the spirit realm and my guides be like, girl, you killed it.
Honestly, that's probably gonna happen though. That's like legit gonna happen. You the way I like to think about it is the fence post theory. And so if you think about fence posts, there's like definitive big posts, but then there's a huge space in between, which any way of paths can meet and connect the two posts.
Mm,
And so in between is where all the synchronicity can unfold. But these fence posts are likely these, I'll call them sort of predetermined or pre-chosen experiences or events that you chose to have a soul contract that
Mm-hmm.
this is going to happen, that is going to propel you into XYZ direction. And how you get to the next fence post, well, there's a bajillion different opportunities and paths that can take, but it's one of these like divine order, divine timing sort of chosen things that you chose in this lifetime.
Yeah, I call it like a soul map. You know,
Mm.
you had a soul map of all these very pivotal moments that you will experience. And those are the moments that are going to be those life-changing, like life-altering, life lesson moments. And if you can just look at your entire life as that, you know, like you hate your job right now and you want to start this business. Okay, this is a point on your soul map. Like, what are you going to do with it? I think it helps you transmute it and also not look at it so seriously because it can feel like life or death, but we really have to have the awareness and the mindset that everything is temporary. If you don't like the business you started, guess what? You could go back to your corporate job. You can go back to Wall Street if you wanted right now. Like you have the option of choice. And sometimes we forget that we have choice even in the hard moments.
Everything is ultimately a choice. Everything is the choice. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's so good. So, I want to talk about synchronicities because I am quickly interrupting this episode to remind you guys that if you're a listener, which clearly you are, I have created a free meditation for all of you. This meditation was built out of my rock bottom when I needed to trust the universe and release a lot of anxiety I was feeling, and I didn't know how. So, I learned how to trust the universe, and I'm going to teach you how in this meditation. It's really practicing this feeling of being held and supported and remembering that you actually are held and supported by the universe in every single moment. All you have to do to get this meditation is to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, and then go ahead and head over to my podcast Instagram at Alignment Academy Podcast. Give it a follow and then message me on there with a screenshot of your rating or review, whatever platform you're listening on, and I will send you the meditation. Okay, now back to the episode. I have honestly just kind of gotten into the magic of synchronicities in my life. I mean, looking back, it's so easy to see the synchronicities, but I think it's even more magical when you can notice synchronicities while you're going through your life. So, you mentioned that when you were leaving Wall Street and the angelic realm was opening up to you, you had a lot of synchronicities that like led you on the path. What is your take on synchronicities and how can people call more synchronicities into their life?
Awesome question. And the way it first showed up for me is through numbers. And I think everyone is familiar with 1111, 222, 333, 444, all of those vibes. And so working with numbers as a banker, I was like, okay, numbers are in front of my life everywhere. I started seeing these numbers, no exaggeration, 20, 30, 40 times a day when I was living in New York. So it's like you walk down the street, there's license plates, there's buildings, there's dinner receipts, GPS, like my Bloomberg screen, CNBC, Excel files I was working on, like this kind of stuff. It was like, okay, there's something weird happening. Why am I specifically noticing this stuff? And then I started to learn about numerology. Pythagoras is the father of numerology, a Greek philosopher. And he says that every number in the universe carries an innate vibration. And when put into sequences or patterns or palindromes, they carry significance. And I learned that, oh, people call these angel numbers. So I was like, okay, angels are communicating to me. So that's how I took it. And I basically started communicating through numbers. I started to notice these numbers. And then as that just like, I started to create a language with it where they just meant something to me.
Mhm.
And obviously I had a framework where I learned some of classical numerology, but then like any language, you create your own twist on it, your own slang, your own way of communicating through it. And then I started to say, okay, can I ask for specific answers and get responses that aren't in numbers? And so I would go for a run and there was something written in chalk on the ground from the day before, or something in the storefront that was literally like a message from my mom, something on a
Wow.
billboard. And I was like, this is crazy. Like I'm getting answers. And I was like, can I ask for specific signs? And so one summer day, I remember this so vividly. I left my apartment and was like, okay, I want to see this type of guy of Asian descent wearing this kind of a jacket, this color hat, standing on the subway platform next to me. And I went out, literally out of 10 people on the subway platform, this exact archetype of a man, 6 foot, like literally exactly, was standing right next to me. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, there's no way. Like, how does this happen? And then I started to go into meditation and be like, can I communicate with these angels back and forth? And it started with like a word and then like a few words and then maybe a sentence. And then over about the course of like a month or two, it became a full blown dialogue. And I was like, okay, so we're doing something here. And then you can basically like ask for synchronicities or signs to unfold. Like if I'm on the right path, show me the picture of an owl, for example. And in New York, you're not going to see many owls, but they can show up as you're scrolling on your Instagram feed and something pops up, or you walk into a restaurant and there's a painting or a sculpture of an owl, or someone says it, like the word owl, or there's so many ways, but it's like, how can you be so hyper aware and present that you pick up on it? Because the synchronicities are actually happening in every single moment. It's just a matter of how deeply present are you to notice it.
Oh my gosh, I have so much I have to say, but I got to tell you, every day in my meditation, I ask for a sign, and today mine was owl.
Well, here you go. This is your sign of an owl.
I know, I know. It's so funny. This is it, guys. This is how it happens. It's like when you're on the path, when you're just in alignment, they come. But yeah, I've actually been asking more. And then the other thing that I've been doing too is acknowledging it because I used to ask but then not acknowledge it. So now I like make a point to either tell a friend or write it down on a note of like synchronicities or just like tell like let the universe know that you're grateful for the synchronicity so it can tell you more because the more you notice it, the more you're going to be aware of it, the more the universe can send you even more. So this is just insane.
You hit it spot on. And I'm so glad you said that because so in my morning journaling practice, I actually write it out. I say three things of magic or synchronicity I noticed in the last 24 hours. And then
Oh,
it's awesome because then like you recall it and then it also helps amplify it as you talked about. And then as it happens in the moment, for me, angels are my way of communication. So I just say, thank you, angels, for reminding me of your presence. And so that is like, it's a beautiful way that brings that heart opening energy into my life. And then also expresses gratitude for the synchronicity I experienced.
oh, I love that. I'm actually going to start doing that because even right now, when you were talking, I was like, what are three magical things that happened in my life? And I'm like, there was so much magic yesterday, and I haven't even said I'm grateful for it. Like I should do that. So such a good little exercise to do every day.
Yeah, it's fun.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about the ego death that probably came with the fact that you went from a Wall Street dude to saying that you can communicate with angels. What was that like?
Oh my God. Basically like every relationship and friendship and connection I had, like dissolved because
Yep.
people were like they don't get you anymore. You
Mm-mm.
don't you don't react on their frequency anymore. Think about someone who's working on a Wall Street trading floor selling bonds to people like it does not compute. I even remember I actually went back to go visit my boss like a year after I left and I told her about what I did and she was like okay like the angels are a bit much for me, but like maybe I'll do a breathwork session with you at some point. So I was like, okay, like that's at least like something that's like moving there. But it's very clear that like I would guarantee you that most people that I used to work with and friends I went to college with are like, this dude is absolutely nuts. And so yeah, everything changed. Everything changed. But it was something that felt so it's like one of those things that like you feel like there's no way of ignoring it. Like I can't go back to seeing something after I've already seen everything I've seen and experienced.
Yeah.
It just does not resonate with you anymore and your life is calling you on a different path. And if that means your past relationships and friendships and things like that have to fall away, so be it. And interestingly, some people have started to reach back out in the years that have followed, being like, hey, I just went through a really tough time. Like, can we talk? And I'm like, oh, wow, interesting. Like, so even if like on the surface to save their face, they're like, okay, I'm like not about this. They may still watch from afar and sort of come back. So who knows?
I really want to just acknowledge this part of your journey too, because this was the most painful part of mine as well. It is, we're talking about it like it was nothing, but the actual act of you having to like almost remove these people of your in your life and know that they're judging you and rejecting you, it's a big thing that light workers go through. I mean, it's not easy to feel misunderstood, know that you're being judged, not think that you're being judged, like know that you're being judged and continue on your path as well. When I was going through this, my higher self explained to me that it's actually part of your soul's initiation. Because in order to actually be the embodiment of who you want to be on your path, you have to be okay with people not liking you. And you have to know that it's not a actual reflection of your soul and the source that's within you. It's literally their projection of what they're comfortable with. And I love what you said too about the fact that they come back around because I have had some really like wild people where I thought they would just never be into what I'm doing, like following me without me even knowing and messaging me one day being like, "Hey girl, we went to, middle school together or whatever and I love what you're doing." And it just you never know who's watching. So sometimes I think it's good to remind whoever's listening to not always assume the worst. Just assume that you're helping people without them knowing and without them liking or without them saying anything too, because you are.
It's such a journey in holding your own faith and staying onto your own authenticity, because it really shows you like how can you be fully you that is
Mm-hmm.
is shining your authentic light, knowing that this is what your heart genuinely wants. Because if you, and people see this all the time, if you go against your own self, you will start to manifest physical illnesses.
Yeah.
It is something that has been shown time and time again. And oftentimes that's what we talk about, a midlife crisis. Like that's because most people are in a job that they detest every day, and it grinds them down emotionally until they're in a point where everything is just in a complete breakdown. And similarly, if you go against what your heart is wanting, you feel it in your body. Like eventually the energetic signals may be first psychological and emotional, but it will trickle to your physical body if you don't listen to saying slow down, or you need to be more authentic or in alignment with yourself. And you're only hurting yourself by not letting go of those people, of those old ways of being. Because I come back to surrender. Like I think about it like going down with a sinking ship. Like you might be so fearful and you have your life vest on and you're like, this ship is sinking, but the ocean is vast and it's nighttime and there's creatures under the water and I have no idea what's down there. And I can get swept up in these waves. It only gets so bad when the ship is about to completely go under that you're like, either I sink with this ship or I am out in this water and something happens that you have to let go. Otherwise, you literally die. And then you open up to an infinite amount of possibilities where a sailing boat by might come and pick you up and take you to shore. But we don't know what's in the unknown. So that aspect of fear prevents us from really letting go of the things that we used to know, even though they're sinking.
I love this. And my angels told me when I was losing a lot of people last year, they said any perceived loss is just preparing you for more love on the other side. And I
Mm.
always remember that when they told me that in my head in my journal, because I wrote it down and it's just stuck in my brain since. And every single time I'm going through a loss or, thinking that I'm losing something because I'm following my soul, I just remember that it's only preparing you for greater levels of love because you never max out on love. Like if you really think about that, it's beautiful. Like you can never run out of love. There's always more. There's always more alignment, more expansion, more love on the other side of anything that you're losing due to your authenticity.
I love where this conversation has gone. I don't know if you've ever read this book, A Course in Miracles.
I haven't read it through. I've read a little bit of like excerpts from other people that have like covered it, but yeah, what about it?
I mean, the core tenet is that only love is real, and anything that is not
Mm,
love is rooted in the egoic sense of separation. The way it
yeah.
literally says that is anything real cannot be threatened, or nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists. And so the
Mm.
energy is only love is real, and that can never be threatened. Only fearful thoughts or fearful actions feed into this sense of illusion that you're living in. But if it's rooted in the genuine feeling of love, that is actually the only thing that is real.
And going back to, I'm like, I love how this is just a spider web, but going back to our initial conversation when I was saying that I'm addicted to meditation at the moment, it's because when you actually open your heart in meditation, like when you're feeling the oneness of all that is, none of your problems are problems anymore because you know that even the quote unquote bad things are still source. And that's really what been source has been teaching me lately. Like the bad emotions, the bad experiences, the bad whatever, it's still source. It's still part of it. So it's actually still love because love is expansion. And that's what it's doing to your soul is it's just allowing you to expand more. And when you can hold that level of consciousness, even while your human is going through a hard experience, that's the true mastery that comes from the soul.
Preach, girl, preach. And for everyone listening, I actually want people to go back and re-listen to what Kristen just said, because that is the deepest felt truth that has probably been said on this entire show so far. So thank you. And that's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. The way I found you was this video about MBOs.
Mm.
So, what's an MBO? Tell the audience.
Oh, it's my favorite thing in the world. It's called the most benevolent outcome. And it is the way that you call in your angels. It is the way you call in your spirit guides, beings of love and light energy to co create with the energy around you in this world. We often think that we have to go through life alone, but that's not the case. We have an entire team around us, but they're unseen to the human eye. We can only
Mhm.
see the visible spectrum of light, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. But there's so many types of energy and frequency that we can't see: radio waves, X rays, UV rays, gamma rays, radio waves, which are all around us. And so, similarly, angels are these high frequency, light density beings that we can't see with our eyes usually, but they will come to you to deliver signs, but must be called in consciously into your life to work with the energy around you because they can never encroach upon your choice of free will. And so, the most benevolent outcome is the easiest, simple way to call them in with a simple sentence. The way it says is, angels and energetic beings of love and light, I request a most benevolent outcome for blank, and fill in the blank. And then you say, thank you. And you can fill that in with anything you want. And I've used this tens of thousands of times in my life over the past few years. You can even compress and expand time because time is an illusion. So I've started to understand that you can request. So if you're taking like a really long road trip where you're like, oh, I wish it didn't feel so long, you can ask for time to compress. But if you're spending time with someone that you really love and you want it to feel like it's so much longer than it is, you can request for time to be expanded. And you'll say, like, wow, this feels like it was so much longer than it was, or so much shorter. But you can request for anything, like a spot above your seat on the airplane for your carry-on. You can request for a perfect parking spot for a safe trip. I actually request MBOs segment intending my entire day in the morning before I get out of bed. So from my morning meditation to my workout to the calls that I have to even this podcast to um, even going to bed at night. So I fall asleep quickly and easily and stay asleep all night and wake up feeling rested. So it's like the MBO has changed my life and it is so simple in one sentence.
I'm there's so much I want to get into. Let's talk about segment intending because I'm a big segment intending girly. It's so funny that we're talking about this because I was listening to sometimes when I just like wake up in a little bit of a weird mood, I'll just put on some Abraham Hicks. And a couple of days ago I was listening to a segment intending episode or whatever, a YouTube video, and it really does change your life. So let's just get into it for a second. How do you, like, let's just explain what segment intending is.
Sure. So the way I explain segment intending is you use your brain's reticular activating system, the RAS, which is it's part of your brain right in the back by the brainstem, where you tell it what to focus on. So you may have played the game Punch Buggy, No Punchbacks growing up as a
Mhm.
kid, where you would drive down the highway and depending on if you saw a Volkswagen buggy or not, you would punch the person next to you and say Punch Buggy, No Punchbacks. Well, what you're doing is you're telling your brain, I want to focus on seeing more VW buggies. And so it's going to go and pick out those things specifically out of all the cars driving down the highway. Well, the same thing operates with your day because your mind does what you think it wants you to do, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. And so I will go through my day, segment intending, meaning you will segment your entire day from any tasks that you have, any meetings, the food you want to eat to be healthy, the ways you want to be protected or safe throughout the day if you're driving somewhere or traveling, and you will go through what I do is I go through each of my appointments, I go through everything I have, and I request a most benevolent outcome for how I want those things to go. So for this podcast to be recorded effortlessly with ease and grace and beautiful connection that serves your audience for their highest good, to a workout that helps me get exactly what I want for my body goals and my health goals. And so all of these things, just like you can literally request what you want. And then as you go about your day, your brain will find reasons to pull out why this is happening for you and magnify it even more so. So the sense of gratitude and appreciation you're talking about for synchronicities, the same thing operates for segment intending your day and ends up trickling into every day of your life.
And I think what happens too is like the law of attraction almost like speeds it up because you see a little bit of a synchronicity. You're like, wait, I segment intended that I was going to have a good call and I really did have a good call. And then what happens is because you're feeling those feelings and you have an electromagnetic field around your body, now you're literally calling more experiences to you that would magnify that feeling of gratitude or, oh my gosh, it's all working out for me or feeling lucky or whatever that is.
That's epic. I never thought about it on that level, but you're totally spot on.
I'm really into like bridging the science because I have a Virgo moon. And so for even though I've always believed in the spiritual stuff, when I hear like actually the science of it, it just makes me believe it even more. And I want to talk to about something that you said in one of your reels about MBOs, because you mentioned that it's not always going to work out the way you think it is. And I think that this is important because I know there's someone that's going to be on this podcast, listening to this podcast, maybe driving and being like, all right, angels, get me a spot. And then maybe they won't get a spot and they're going to be like, okay, that angel shit is just dumb. So what do you have to say to that? Because I just want to like speak to the critics too.
Yeah, no, it's so true because we as humans are so myopically focused on what we believe is the right outcome, saying it has to be this way, otherwise it is not right.
Mm-hmm.
However, that is our limited perception as a human, knowing only what we know. There is an infinitude of things happening out in this world that we have no idea what is happening. So, for example, let's talk about getting a parking spot. Well, you request a most benevolent outcome for a parking spot by the store, and that might not be the one right near the store because someone might back out and end up hitting your car. Whereas one a few spots down, there might still be money left in the meter and no one hits your car. So that is the most benevolent outcome for you and everyone because
Mm.
it abundance for everyone and there's no car getting hit. Similarly, I'll share a personal story. I was in Spain and we rented a car and my friend was driving it and they were pulling into a driveway and they hit basically this big pillar coming into the driveway. There was a gate and it totally scratched up the side of the car. And I was like, oh my God, like, okay, I don't know why this is happening, but I'm grateful. And, you know, this might be what needed to unfold. Well, I ended up getting a refund for well, the insurance policy covered it and it
Mm.
covered in euros because I was in Spain and I ended up going to a retreat in Portugal the following year where I used that money and I didn't need to convert dollars to euros. So I actually saved money on conversion paying for this retreat. So I was like, okay,
Wow.
like, and it happened months later. So it's like you
Hmm.
don't know what's actually unfolding, but you have to surrender into the process. And it might feel uncomfortable because you have your own view of what you think is right. But that's part of releasing into things that are really outside of you, knowing that, again, life is happening for you.
Oh, so good. And I think it's just important, yeah, guys, to think that like you're not always going to see why it unfolded the way it did in the moment. We want to be able to see it, but there are infinite timelines in the quantum
Mm,
field. There's infinite timelines. And so there's a timeline where you get your car hit, there's a timeline where you don't. And like your higher self is always reevaluating all of them and choosing them on behalf for you for the MBO, the most benevolent outcome. So you have to remember that.
totally. I've used it literally, no exaggeration, tens of thousands of times. And each time it removes anxiety, stress, worry, fear from any situation. And you
Mm.
relax being like, okay, my team's got this for me. Like whatever's happening, like it's happening for me. And it's that's part of what it's meant to do for you. It's allowing you to go through your life with a lot more ease and grace. And there's no limit to requesting it. They're there to work for you, for your energy as you go through the human experience.
What is your take on like, do we have one main angel? Like, do we have millions of angels? Do we need to be calling in certain angels?
Deep question, and I can go on a lot about this, but I'll try to keep it tight. There are archetypes of angels, as people know the archangels, but those to me are just archetypes. So Raphael is healing, Michael is protection, Shamuel is love. Like they're just archetypes that you can call on that exhibit this type of energy. To me, the angel is actually your higher self. So it is you at a higher density because source, God, light, spirit, whatever you want to call it, it's a singularity of consciousness. And from that, it becomes infinitely fractalized. And so on some of the densest layers, you have us humans. There's nearly 8 billion of us. We're opaque, we're solid beings. But as you pull that back up into itself, you have the density of angels. Well, if it is all just one and it is you at a higher, it is a higher density, well, that means it's you at a higher density. That means it's your higher self. So
Yeah.
you're actually calling upon your higher self. But I still think of it as beings outside of me just for like conceptual understanding and also because it's kind of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
But it's
It's
your
all
higher
the
self.
source.
Yeah.
This is so funny. I'm going to tell a story about I've never told this story. So I've shared a lot about like some big mushroom trips that really have just opened me up and expanded me in crazy ways. And I used to really only call myself like an angelic channel because when my channel first opened up, like it was the angels that came through. And I find that actually a lot of my friends that have had similar like opening of channels, I feel like you usually do start with angels because they're very safe and they're the purest frequency. It's only unconditional love. Like there's no distortion that can even be available when you're working with the angels, which I love. So I'm on this mushroom trip and I'm basically face to face with source, like not obviously face to face because source doesn't have a face, but I'm speaking back and forth to this energy. And I was really upset because I was like, why have I been saying that I'm talking to angels? It's all source. And they were like, yeah, but you're not like they were explaining exactly what you were saying. It's just a part of the source, but yes, it's part of the whole. And I've had like before we got on this podcast, we were talking about how you kind of go through a lot of ego deaths on this spiritual path, especially as you get into the dimensions and the realms and what are you channeling and what information is coming from where. It's a lot. But I think it was a very sobering moment being like, no matter what you're channeling, it's all of the light, it's all source. And you have to remember that like you can call it whatever your human wants to call it, but it ultimately is all that oneness energy that is source consciousness.
That's yeah. When you start out, and you're so right. Like angels are they're my fave because they are just unconditional love. Like
Hmm.
anything that comes through, they're not going to reprimand you. They're not going to tell you, what are you
Gentle.
doing? I can't believe you just dated that guy. I can't believe you're living this life. Like, you're such a bad person. No, it's never like that. They're
No.
only there to nudge you and guide you with a lot of love. And they're
Lots
actually
of love.
really humorous too, because they know your sense of humor exactly. But as you evolve on your journey evolves too. So new things open up, I'll call them challenges unfold in your life because
Hmm.
it's just signals of somewhere that you need to be redirected to, or a new door you need to walk through, or how you are meant to embody the next level of forgiveness or love or worthiness of yourself. Like
Yeah.
all of these things come through as you evolve. And it just takes the first step of stepping on the journey, being authentic with what's happening in your life, and honestly finding a community of people who are going to support you through it.
And get you and can talk this language because it's so much more powerful when you're seen for like your authentic self and who you are. I
It's
also
yeah.
think that there's something too about like angels are in every religion too. So I think that there's a certain safety associated where me and you before we started recording, we were talking about how there's like a lot of stigma around the word God, but it really is such a powerful word. And I think that the beauty of working with angels is, I grew up Catholic, but angels were still a part of Catholicism. And because of that, I think they always had this sense of safety to me. And there's never really like bad, I don't know, energy around angels, I feel.
Yeah, you're totally right. They're not associated with any one religion because they're in basically every religion and culture, from all the Abrahamic religions, Islamic religions, the Druids. They operate on the elements, so the four elements, but they call it the fifth element is the unseen element,
Mm,
angel or spirit. In Hinduism, they're known as the Devas. In Buddhism, they're known as the Bodhisattvas. It goes as far back as the Aboriginals, which is the oldest culture on Earth. And they have found cave paintings that are basically resemblant of angels. They call them the invisible beings, which the elders of the tribe connect to when they need guidance and support to call on for rains and crops and guidance. So yeah, they transcend every religion, but they're always there. It's like this invisible, unseen guidance in your life.
I love that. What's your relationship with them? Like, do you hear them in your head all day long? Do you have to go into a trance to hear them? Like, how does your channeling work?
Yeah, we're homies at this point. Like we we I don't need to go into a trance anymore. I can basically ask for guidance, be like, hey, like, what's happening? Um,
Mm,
and yeah, it's gotten so much deeper than just angels because it's now it's become my intuition, and
mm,
it's become me. And I think that's part of the
yeah,
process of integrating and embodying these higher frequencies and these
yeah,
higher dimensional beings. It's you. It's all you. You are everything because you are. And the journey is actually you realizing that. And it's basically like pulling that information into you so that it's no longer something that's outside of you, but it's something that's already in you that you're activating and speaking to. And that's why I
yeah.
call it, it's just now an embodiment of my own intuition that's
Oh,
like guiding me.
I love that. And I think that's been the journey for me too. Before I thought I kind of was putting even the things that I was channeling on a pedestal, but then you get to a point where you realize you are you are it. You are all of it. And it's weird to say. It's like you don't want to sound egoic. You're like, I am source. I'm God, bitches. But like you are too, you know? You are
Yeah.
too. And if you remember it, that's the place of worthiness that you attract everything that you want. And that's where you can transmute any pain, any trauma, anything because you understand it's all happening for you.
I, mic drop. Like that's it. Like that is it.
What is the angelic perspective on money and abundance? Because this is a question I get a lot to talk about more money. So, can we ask the angels, like, for the collective of Alignment Academy, how do we attract more wealth and abundance into our lives?
Yeah. Beautiful. There's a couple of ways I can go about doing this. I can either pull a card around this for everyone, or you can just give me a second and I can ask the question and I'll see what comes out of it. Um,
Why don't we ask the question and then at the end we can do like a collective card for everyone listening?
Amazing. So, okay, let's see what comes out of this. So abundance is your birthright, is actually what it is. Abundance is already in everything. What
Mhm.
often happens is there's a blockage of people to realize why they are deserving of the financial abundance that they seek. And
Mm.
often what it is actually a subconscious block that is not readily available in their conscious mind because everyone says, no, like I'm ready for money. I'm ready for abundance. It's here for me. Like, why is it still being blocked? Well, it's actually on a really deep level because, for example, and this can show up different for everyone, but the example is if you're someone who believes that you need to work really hard for financial abundance, you will subconsciously block yourself from financial abundance because you will say, if I receive financial abundance, what will I need to work really hard for? Or what will motivate me to work really hard? And this is
Mm.
something that is actually really deep in people because most people don't actually think that. They don't believe that. But that's
Consciously.
yeah, exactly. But that's actually deeply in there. But they want you to know that money is simply energy, and to now replace the word money with energy. And would you ever say, oh, like I need to work really hard for energy? I need to chase energy because that's the way you receive it. It's what changes when your paradigm shifts from the word money to the word energy is a lot, because you'll no longer want to say only bad people have a lot of energy. That's just not
Mm,
right. That's just,
so good.
it is unspiritual to have energy. No, that's not it, right? Like spiritual people operate on the energetic plane. They Reiki energy healers, like everything is energy, right? And so it's a simple, simple is relative for people, but it is a shift from money to energy and seeing that abundance as your natural birthright and simultaneously removing the subconscious blocks to what is there.
Wow. And like you can even shift that, kind of go on a rant of being like, I always have energy. I always have more than enough energy. My energy is always available to me. I can eat more food and I'll have more energy. Like really looking at it as just like a renewable resource that, you spend some of your energy, then you re-up it, and then you spend it, and then you re-up it, and you always have more than enough to do everything that you need.
It's a giving and receiving cycle, just like everything else. It's not something that needs to be hoarded, right? It's not. I need to save all my energy because someone might take away all my energy from me all of a sudden. It's
Mm,
it's just like everything else, like breathing, right? You need to breathe in and you need to breathe out.
mm.
You can't just breathe in and hold it all in. You'll get
Yeah.
uncomfortable. You can't just breathe out and give it all out. It's a natural rhythm of giving and receiving. And when people talk about doing the work in this spiritual world, this is the kind of work that it is doing. You're doing work on the subconscious level, you're doing work around your beliefs, and they call it work because it's a retraining and reprogramming of the mind, because the mind learns by repetition. And so it's something that is work because it needs to be constantly gone through in order for the new realization to come forth.
Yeah, and really putting your attention on like back to our point of choice. It's like you can choose to see all the ways that you're abundant, or you choose to see all the ways that you're in lack. If your subconscious mind is primed for lack, it's just going to be so much easier to see that. But you can change that within yourself. You can literally change your frequency. You can change your thoughts. Thoughts are just frequencies. Think about it. Every thought is just a frequency. You change your thoughts, which creates feelings, which creates electromagnetic field around your body. And now money is getting called to you. Abundance is getting called to you literally through energetic work.
There's an amazing meditation that your listeners can go listen online. It's called the Abundance Meditation by Bob Proctor. It's
Okay.
20 minutes. I listen to it twice a day.
I
It
think I listened to that when I was in college every single day.
Yep. So I listened to it when I started my business, and I immediately started getting clients. And then I stopped listening to it and I was like, oh, great. Like I'm abundant AF. And then recently, when I was going through some of these money blocks myself, I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to revisit this. I listened to it. Within the next day, I got 3 angel readings booked. Like I got people like offering me things. I was like, this is crazy. Like if if
Wow.
if like energy isn't real, like then how is this working? Because it's just a reprogramming. It's an energetic signal you send out that, okay, you're ready for things to change, and it'll slowly start to shift as you meet the universe halfway through your co-creation.
Do you have a crazy like angel story of like them creating more time for you, or I don't know, just like a fun story?
Oh man, my entire life is one of these stories. It's hard to pinpoint one story because genuinely my life has become an entire flow of requesting MBOs,
Mm,
and the most powerful way they come through is through the people I meet. And
mm,
I have met business partners as a result of it. I have met new investments that I've invested in, new companies that I've invested in, just literally through me being open and requesting it, like, and it's me being granular and saying, I am requesting a most benevolent outcome to be a magnetic invitation for the perfect investments and assets to find me for my highest good and wisdom. And sure enough, I found one of the most incredible investments. I was hiking through Chile and Patagonia, and literally like random. And I met this guy, and we were hiking together for like 7 hours. And what he does is he builds data centers at renewable energy sites, and they either generate power and sell it back to the grid or mine Bitcoin with it. And he was like, "Would you like to be a general partner with our company?" And I was like, he's like, "You clearly know your stuff. Like you worked at Goldman for a while. Like we got deep into like structured finance." And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "We were opening a round of financing, and if you'd like to be a general partner, like I invite you to do that." And I was like, "This is nuts!" Like,
So cool.
so it's like the angels will work with you because they want you to be abundant, but you just need to tell them what you want.
Yeah. Tell them what you want, guys. What do you want? And I think that sometimes too, we hear all these things like ask for signs, tell them what, but like, have you actually sat down with your journal and like really wrote down what you wanted? Really asked angels, really like, I'd like to talk to the consciousness of money. Like, if you really sit down and do those things for a month, 2 months, your life will change. I think that we just hear these fluffy things and we're like, oh, yeah, like it doesn't work for me, but it will work for you if you just take the time out of your day to just do it.
That's it. Like literally just spend the time to go back to basics, go back to fundamentals.
Yes.
Something that's really topical for the collective right now is around identity and lifestyle. So get
Mm,
clear on what kind of lifestyle do you actually want? Like, are you still working your job and you don't like it, but you're not really clear on what the specifics of your lifestyle are? Like, what are you doing on a Friday night when there's nothing to do? What does your Monday actually look like? How long
yeah.
do you actually want to work without feeling selfish? Like, allow it to be put out there, because right now we're going through a big collective time of identities shifting, not even shifting, but just getting clear on it and ultimately redefining what our lifestyle really wants to be. So I invite everyone to do that.
Oh, so good. And it's true, guys. Like you don't have to stay the same person forever. You are allowed to evolve and change. And sometimes we forget that because there's so many people that it will affect if we evolve. But just remember, it's actually the MBO, the most benevolent outcome for everyone when you evolve, because whether it makes them uncomfortable or things shift, it's always bringing you into greater levels of alignment, even if it's misaligned seems misaligned at first. This was an amazing conversation. I literally am like, I have 10 more questions, but I'm going to be respectful of time. Let's end with a collective alignment academy reading for the audience if you're open to it and just see what
Very,
comes through for the angel. What do the angels want to tell the audience?
very open to it. Let's see what happens. Okay. Angels and energetic beings of love and light, I request a most benevolent outcome for receiving the most beautiful guidance for the Alignment Academy listeners to guide them on their path for their highest good and wisdom. May everything come through with clear grace and ease. So we say, and so it is. Thank you.
So it is.
So let us see what they want to reveal to us. The biggest strength that, if you're listening to this right now, the biggest strength that you have percolating your entire life right now is the energy of creation. And this is a sacred energy of creation that is a connection of the masculine and feminine energies. It's the mother father that is connected into the source light energy that we are. This is one of the greatest things that you can do in your life. If you're listening to this right now, there's a deep creative impulse that is ready to spring out of you. You are an incredibly creative and gifted being. And you have a lot that you want to bring in creation, but for some reason, there's small nuances that are potentially holding you back. But your angels want you to know that your aspect of creation, being connected to the heart of creation right now, is the most powerful strength that you have, and it wants to come forth. And they also similarly want you to know that your ability to be authentic in that creation is actually what your heart wants to sing. Your ability to be honest in the ways that you're communicating, if you're making content, if you're putting yourself out on social media, if you're trying to find clients or not sure if your authentic offering of what you really are gifted in and want to put out there is going to resonate with the right people. Your angels are saying that it's going to, and that your ability to be authentic with your creation is going to be paramount as you go into doing what you need to be doing. And lastly, they want you to know that there's these small little things to focus on around clearing, canceling, releasing energetic cords, which are attaching you and tying you to jobs, people, places that are no longer serving you. You know it's no longer serving you, and you're ready to actually let it go. But it's a little bit of an uphill battle because within these people, jobs, circumstances holds a lot of energy, be it comfort or security or familiarity or financial certainty, whatever that is that you're afraid of. These are things that are ready to be cleared and canceled and released from your life. And that small little prayer, so to speak, clear, cancel, and release, is actually going to serve you really well because it's showing your angels and the universe that this is something that you want to really now cut cords with and cut ties with. And your ability to follow your heart of creation, knowing that you are connected to the light source energy. This is truly a message directly from source saying, you are connected into my light right now. Now is a time
Mm.
to bring forth the energy of creation from what is already flowing through you. And your ability to be authentic in what is flowing through you is you're actually going to help you cut those cords in a much more graceful manner. So that is what your angels have to say.
I love that message so much. It's so relevant. My audience has been talking about cord cutting and releasing attachments all week. So I'm like, of course, of course, it's so good. And I just want to add to my audience that I want you guys to remember that your natural state is creation. What's the source here to do? Only evolve and create. And so the reason you might feel stuck in your life, the real reason you might feel stagnant is because you have denied your ability to create new life, a new career, a new relationship, a new potential for yourself. So give yourself the gift of creation because it's just who you are. You can't deny that part of you.
Yep, absolutely.
Neal, this was so magical. Honestly, I knew it was going to be good, but I think it just blew my mind even more, like it does typically. And so tell my audience how they can stay connected, how they can book an angel reading with you, where they can find you, all that good stuff.
Sure. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at neal.bakshi, my website, nealbakshi.com. And one of my passions is leading retreats around the world, unique experiences that are a mix of travel and adventure meets spiritual healing. That's my passion. So if you want to come join me somewhere cool in the world, Egypt, Mexico, Greece, wherever, we do some really fun stuff. So you can always find me there.
So excited. Everything will be linked below so you guys can find him on the gram and his website. Thank you so much, Neal, for coming on, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.